Well, the Africa Brand Summit was founded in 2016, but it was only launched in 2018 because we had to skip 2017 to allow the ANC, their governing party, sometimes I call it the misgoverning party in South Africa, to choose new leadership at the end of 2017. But the aim of it is really to interrogate Africa's brand potential. There are many negative things happening in regards to how Africa is viewed around the world and in Africa, and there are positive ones. So the aim of the summit is to say, let's isolate the negative things and propose ways to address them over time, and let's isolate the positive things and address ways to continue investing in them over time, so that we get to a point where more positive things get said about Africa than negative ones. But look, we don't control policy in South Africa. Fortunately, we still live in a country where freedom of expression is appreciated and tolerated and respected. So what we do is we generate conversations, we host difficult conversations, we get people to look into the mirror. A lot of times in South Africa and maybe in other parts of the continent, we easily blame somebody else. In South Africa, we blame apartheid, we blame white people, we blame a beast called the white monopoly capital for all the troubles. But we don't look at the people who are really responsible for the state that the country finds itself in today. And we try to, through my writing, I'm a freelance writer as well, and other engagements in the media through the Africa Brand Summit, we try to say, but wait a minute, if you keep misdiagnosing the problem, you will not solve the problem, because it's not your problem anyway, it's somebody else's problem. So you can keep pointing fingers elsewhere. And Africa will continuously play victim. It will continuously blame everybody else except itself. But a lot of the troubles we're in the rest of the continent, in South Africa, are bad leadership, kleptocratic leadership, leadership that lacks vision, leadership that lacks the appreciation of, for instance, in South Africa, a very, very diverse country. You can't lead South Africa if you don't first appreciate and acknowledge that we are always going to be a diverse country. Once you start saying, I'm black, I'm going to lead for the blacks, I'm white, I'm going to lead for the whites, color, Indian, Chinese, etc., then you're not the right person for this country. So our contribution is really to say to people, you need to stop fighting battles that are unwinnable. South Africa will always be a diverse country. Just accept it and deal with it. And if you can't work with a diverse society, you don't belong to even want to be a leader of a diverse country. Empowerment. I'm not a supporter of nanny states. That doesn't mean that I don't think that there should be support for people who genuinely cannot do things for themselves. Maybe they are handicapped. Maybe, there are times when we need to reach out. Society must reach out to the most weak in it and help them. So it's almost like a capitalism with a heart. Okay. So I think that we need to create opportunities and environment in South Africa, in Africa, that enables individuals to realize their potential. Because I really do believe that when people get given the education and the space and the support they need to become great, they can become great. But also, on the other hand, when we make people get used to the idea that somebody will always give them something, and they must always demand something because the world owes them something, you can't get away out of it, because people then start putting in their heads that somebody must do something about this. It's not me, it's not my responsibility. The world owes me something, I'm a victim. We can't live in a world of victims. It's not good. So I think that aid should be given to those who genuinely need it, not forever if it's possible, to help them stand up again and walk on their own feet. But people must be, the first prize should be stand up and work. Contribute to the world, contribute to Africa, contribute to your community, to your society in the best way that you can, and not sit there and expect other people to give you food on the plate without you trying. My professional standing is I'm a brand specialist, all right? And all brands need to have a leader, whether it's a corporate brand, an NGO brand, a country brand. Without a leader in the front who clearly leads from the front tone, who lives the values, the brand cannot get anywhere. So a country like South Africa, if you think of South Africa under Mandela and South Africa under, say, Zuma, you can think of America under Bill Clinton or Obama. It's the same country under Trump, for instance. So leadership does define this, how a country or a brand is viewed, how it operates, how the people inside of it live the values. So South Africa has the potential. I totally believe that South Africa, even Africa, has the potential to become the best, to lead, but it can't do that if the leaders don't have vision. If the leaders that we put in place don't have vision, they only think about themselves, they only think about their longevity in power, how much they can get out of the public service, etc., etc. So what we do need are leaders who are visionary, visionary. Mandela was visionary. It's a pity that he stayed for too long in power, but he was very clear about the values. He was very clear about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Here in South Africa, for instance, today, levels of arrogance in politics and levels of impunity are very, very high. People think they can just get away with anything because they are linked to the governing party in power. So it's almost like an animal farm, an Orwellian-style animal farm, which is very painful. Well, the Africa Brand Summit, obviously, we challenged the status quo in terms of thinking. We started asking difficult questions. And I must tell you this, and to your audience, it's not something I put out there often. There was a government-funded campaign to destroy it 2 years ago. People were called not to work with the summit, not to collaborate with the summit. We were told we were going to embarrass the President Zuma at the time. So the challenge is for people to understand that, there's a concept of hard love. Hard love is like when your child says, I want ice cream, you give them ice cream, and they want ice cream again, you say, okay, here's another one. They keep wanting ice cream, you say, nope, it's not enough, it's good, it's enough to it, or one is enough for you, otherwise it's not good for your health. Sometimes hard love, you must say the things that you must say. When you love somebody, you mustn't just say to them what they want to hear. And I think African leaders are too, or maybe politicians in general, are too used to people saying what they want to hear. They surround themselves with people who just want them to hear what they want to hear. With the Africa Brand Summit, we say, no, let's have the difficult conversations, not out of hatred, but because we believe fundamentally that we can change things if we face our problems for what they are. So our challenges are getting those people who are too politically aligned to accept that not everything runs according to them, but also funding. Of course, funding is a big challenge for an organization like ours, because our aim is not just to host an event every year. Our aim is to create an Africa-based destination reputation management advisory. So with a research team made up of not just Africans, but Africans, and it could be young Asians, Europeans, others, because Africa doesn't live on an island of its own. We are part of the bigger global ecosystem, and we can't live looking at gazing at a paid button as if it's the only thing that exists. So what we want to do is, let's look from every year, from the beginning of January to the end of December, what are the key drivers of reputation for Africa? What are the things that make Africa shine? What are the things that make Africa painful, that hurt Africa? If you look at what happened in South Africa over the past month or so, it was really, really bad for South Africa. If you look at the elections in Uganda, it's bad. If you look at countries in Africa that still come up with legislation to criminalize being gay or lesbian or transsexual, I mean, that's nonsense. You know what I'm saying? So Africa needs to grow up. No, Africa can still be African and still be modern at the same time. Africa must not be afraid of modernity. Being modern doesn't mean you become westernized. It means that you embrace that we live in 2021 and not in 1908 or in 1685. You know what I'm saying? So we need to have these difficult conversations where people, a lot of times we are held back by traditions, by archaic traditional practices. This is African. This is how we do things. A man must be on top. You can't have a relationship with somebody of the same sex. Come on, it's nonsense. Why not? Why do you say it's not African to do that? Actually, there's a lot of hypocrisy around it. And if we don't have these difficult conversations, then people don't talk about this thing. So we have to challenge the status quo. We have to challenge the things that people have embraced as untouchable, because those are the things that hold Africa back. Despite everything that is not going right, we still have institutions. I like something that Barack Obama said when he went to Ghana soon after he became president. He said a lot of things, but one of the things that I remember very well is that he said Africa needs strong institutions, not strong men or strong women if you want. South Africa has got strong institutions. We created independent institutions of democratic institutions. We have the judiciary that's still standing very separate from the executive. We have the executive, of course. We have Chapter 9 institutions. We have the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And ordinarily, these institutions, if they are headed by the right people, if we put the right people at the head of these institutions, they can still do right. And a lot of countries in Africa don't have independent institutions. The president in the institution, the president can just pick up a call the judge and tell him, this is how this case is going to go. It happens in many African countries. If the judge doesn't do what the president tells them to do, boom, they're out of their job. Sometimes they get killed, they get exiled, they get jailed and all that. If we do the right things, if we appoint people on merit, not cadre deployment, this process of cadre deployment, you and my comrade somewhere out there, here's a big institution, come and run it. It doesn't matter whether you have the qualifications or the skills to do it. That's what's killing South Africa. And also interference by politicians into the functioning of state-owned institutions has been a big problem. So we have the basics in place, but what we have to do, especially after state capture and other forms of corruption that we have seen that have killed this country almost, we have to look back and say, what are the systemic changes that we need to introduce to make sure that what happened doesn't happen again? What are the checks and balance that we need to put in there? It's not just a matter of replacing Solly with Ivan or Ivan with Mary or Joseph. It's a matter of saying, if Jacob could do to this country what he did, somebody else could come in and replace Jacob and then go rogue on this country. So there's something, we placed power, and this is known in South Africa. We put too much power in the presidency at the dawn of our democracy because the president was going to be Mandela. Everybody thought everybody was going to be like Mandela. We didn't realize that not everybody was going to be Mandela. Somebody else was going to come down the line and say, oh, so many powers, I can do this with them. And we've seen that happen. So we need to have conversations in South Africa, not just about cleaning up after the riots and cleaning up after state capture and corruption. We need to say, okay, how do we make sure that when we appoint somebody else, even if they're good at the top of that, when they come into the job, they never get to do to us what that other person did to us. And we're not there yet. In case of South Africa, we're in constitutional democracy. We have a governing party that is duly elected. They have the power to change policies, they have the power to learn from the past. They inherited a historical burden of apartheid, but also over the past 27 years, there have been many, many missed opportunities. They have to say to themselves, why is it that we're still failing? Why is youth unemployment rising to the extent, not just youth unemployment, as a matter of fact, over the past year, now with COVID-19, a lot of businesses have been lost, shut down, a lot of livelihoods have been lost. The governing ANC in South Africa knows that there are some really important deep structural reforms that have to happen in the economy, in the way we run our economy, so that we don't keep pointing fingers outside. But then if the governing party is split, is fractured, they can't speak in one voice on political policy or economic policy, then the country is stuck. Then the country is victim to the inability of the governing party to move forward on anything. So we are a hostage. South Africa is a hostage of the governing party. But we have what it is needed to make the changes that are required in order to have an economy that will ensure that we don't have people looting again, going to break into private property to get food and to get all sorts of other things that they're not able to afford. But those are long-term, those kind of changes require long-term vision. It's not like, okay, I'm elected into power for the next 4 or 5 years. I want to see these things happen in the next 4 or 5 years so that I'm the one who cut the ribbon. It should be, if you close your eyes and you imagine South Africa or Africa in the next 20, 30, 40 years, what do you see? And what are the things that you need to put in place now, the seeds that you need to put in place now that will hopefully lead over time South Africa to be where it must be. But I don't see that we have that kind of leadership, unfortunately. The percentage of non-voters, people who decided, you know what, it doesn't make any difference, I'm going to stay at home, is big. But we mustn't underestimate South Africans. In 2016, we had local government elections, and people like to say that people will always vote for the ANC, but people voted the ANC out of 3 important metropolitans in 2016. And the ANC knows that it can happen again. So I think that for me, poverty and lack of education or lack of information are 2 of the biggest enemies to democracy. With very poor people, you can manipulate people. You throw a few meals at them, just before the elections, you go to their community, you throw a big party, dance, music, you talk about imagined heroism, anti-apartheid heroism, and you hug, you look like them, and then they vote for you, and then you disappear, you come again in 4 years' time. It happens the world over. Misinformation is also dangerous because now we live in a world where of many alternative facts, alternative truths. I could stand in front of you and tell you I'm not wearing any reading glasses, and you could say, but you are wearing the reading glasses. No, I'm not wearing reading glasses. And a friend of mine will come in and say, listen, you need to respect Solly because he's telling you that he's not wearing reading glasses, and you keep telling him that he's wearing reading glasses. So anything gets contested. So people need to inform themselves. People need to read. People need to know what is true, what is not true. Because right now we still have people who defend someone like the man in prison, Jacob Zuma. They still believe, I don't know if they truly believe it, but anyway, they claim to believe that he has done nothing wrong. He deserves not to be prosecuted. I mean, This country is in trouble because of his bad leadership. And the ANC, he wasn't alone. Him and his party allowed everything that happened to happen. But there are still people who see him as a victim. He can just stand up and say, no, it's because of apartheid. It's because of white people. It's because of white monopoly capital. I didn't do anything wrong. Tell me what I've done wrong. But he refuses to go to the courts. He refuses to go to places where the evidence will be put in front of him. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is people need to read more. I don't know, there's got to be a way to inform people. There's so much with social media. We all have stuff being thrown in our direction all the time. Lots of information. I mean, just look at the coronavirus story. There are people who believe that the vaccine is going to turn you into some kind of animal, zombie. They're going to, and attention spans are very short. People don't read long anymore, especially young people. They just want to read headlines and they make a decision on the basis of headlines. So information is important. There's got to be a way to get true information. And again, who defines what's true information? Okay, to the people so that they make informed decisions. As long as voters vote on emotion, we're not going to get out of where we are at. In South Africa, I think people still vote on color. They vote on emotion. You just remind them of the pain of apartheid and they keep voting for the same people who are hating, who are damaging the country right now. You just say, it takes one white person to say the wrong thing and they say, oh, you see, all the white people think that way. So, or one black person says the same, something wrong. And, oh, the black people. So I think information is important. How do we get people? It's just a formal education. It's civic education. People still don't understand how societies function and why voting is important. Yeah, well, I mean, the Africa Brand Summit, if you have just 2 minutes, the website is www.africabrandsummit.co. People must read. It's tiring, but they must read as widely as possible. And they must also not allow themselves to be made prisoners of preconceived ideas, of old narratives that do not help Africa to go forward. Thank you very much.